Welcome to Happy Times and Places, a Doctor Who episode commentary in which a friend of mine tells me their favourite things about a Doctor Who episode, and I have to see if mine are the same.
Hiya Toby, my name's Joe Lidster and I'm a writer of kids TV, audio stuff, a bit of theatre, some Doctor Who related stuff, and currently desperately unemployed, and apparently I should be looking at sports according to the government. So let's worry about that later. The story I've chosen for you is End of the World, because I think it's the most important story in the new revival of Doctor Who. I think everyone, general audience, would be happy to watch Rose. It's very fun, it's very London, shop dummies are very relatable, all that kind of stuff. Unquiet Dead is ghosts and Charles Dickens and Victorian Britain. So again, fairly easy sell to the general public. But End of the World is basically saying to a family audience that you know that those very weird alien shows that your son watches on BBC Two in his bedroom, you're getting aliens in Doctor Who. We're not hiding them from you, so get used to it.
Welcome. I don't know about you, but I feel fine, even though it's the end of the world as we know it. I hope if you are about to watch along with me, you have it set up and ready to go. I'm watching on Netflix, so it's offering me to skip recap, which I'm not going to do. So when I start talking, there will obviously be a bit of Rose. I'm not going straight into the episode, but I think that's how it's mostly available. I'm going to press play in 3, 2, 1, go. So it's the BBC logo. Now, I have seen what you have seen of my special guest, Joe Lidster, which is him introducing what the story is and his sort of general reasons for so doing. So we've got the recap, because of course this is a brave new world for BBC television in 2005. April 2005, and interesting to see his reasons, and he's quite right. I remember when Rose was reviewed on Late Review, which was a watchable yet hateful television review show, in which Bonnie Greer was very sniffily dismissive of Rose, saying it was cheap, whereas Paul Morley, who was a bit more earthy cultural commentator, was very enthusiastic. But he was more enthusiastic because the Next Time trailer for End of the World showed, Doctor Who going into the more outlandish territory with which it is perhaps associated. I was going to say more associated, but no, because I think Doctor Who is associated with aliens invading contemporary Earth. But also, it is a show that goes forward in time and space. But of course, Russell T Davies wisely sets Rose in the present day, turns the present day on its head, brings the Doctor to us, or more importantly to Rose Tyler. We've just watched Billie Piper's new series, I Hate Susie. She is very, very good. But of course, she was a target of my anger when her casting was announced. I was furious. I didn't know anything. She's a pop star. I do this in my one-man show, I'll say my Doctor Who scarf. It's a bit that always got a laugh, because I think people recognised that they were the same. We were looking for things that were going to ruin it, and casting a pop star who's married to Chris Evans was absolutely a sign that a concession to the modern times, which were going to ruin our wonderful thing. And of course, she turned out to be amazing. But yes, this is doing the brave thing. It's one thing to have shop window dummies come to life in the modern day, which, let's face it, Doctor Who had done before. But this is more outlandish territory. And of course, Russell very cleverly said if we were going to go into space, there had to be, humanity somehow, not people from the planet Zog. Although, interestingly, humanity in this episode is represented by somebody who doesn't look human. So this is a sort of... So even though it's only episode 2, this is as alien as Russell T Davies Doctor Who ever got, because the only human is a pancake. So, good choice from Joe, because this is a harder sell to the public, and of course it worked. I think we were... God, it was just so exciting. Extraordinary that, 14 years later? 15 years later? I've got it on DVD next door, but that's far too much legwork to go and get it out of the box. So I've got a choice of streams. It's on iPlayer and on Netflix. I've chosen Netflix because I'm annoyed with the BBC iPlayer for trying to take you away from the credits all the time. Netflix aren't entirely innocent in that regard either, but appallingly, they are better than the BBC. And I know I'd met Clayton Hickman once, I think. I remember reading that he had suggested that the typography is the wrong way around, because directed by is in capitals, and then the name of the director is in normal case, and that is quite top heavy. And I think that was later changed after Clayton had suggested it. So, what a great idea to go, okay, where do we go for our first journey into the future? Well, let's go to how to cut mankind down to size. Having been quite celebratory of mankind, of the Doctor going to Rose in Rose, go and have your beans on toast, but loving that, reveling in the ordinary, which this Doctor does a lot. He's a Doctor of sort of simple tastes. He's not an esoteric dandy, which... seems like it would be... seemed at the time like it would be totally the wrong choice, not the Doctor, for example, and yet was absolutely the right choice and still fits in with the Doctor that does all the doctory things. Now, this is Simon Day. He's now Simon Paisley Day, and was in Face of the Raven as Simon Paisley Day. Here he was Simon Day, and I'm going, what? That's not... he's changed from the Fast Show, because there is Simon Day in the Fast Show, and this is Simon Day who's not Simon Day from the Fast Show, because I'm assuming this actor is a member of Equity, and Simon Day from the Fast Show might not have been, which is why they both have the same name. But I spent the whole thing going, and I actually said to a friend, that was Simon Day from the Fast Show. He said, it's not. And I was going, well, I know, and yet, because I think even the Radio Times had said Simon Day from the Fast Show, and it's not. It's a totally different person, but he's great. He's very good as the steward, and it was nice to see him back, not blue, in Face of the Raven, but he's good. He does good officious alien steward. Although when they did a press launch, I know they had the character of the steward, and the actor Andrew Clover, who is in Ashes to Ashes, played the part, and I've actually met Andrew at a couple of things, and I think he might be a Who fan, actually, but yeah, he's not been in Doctor Who, but he did play the steward at a thing. The Mox of Balhoun, he was big news. That's Jimmy V. Do you know Jimmy V? Oh, I thought my offstage glamorous assistant might know him, because they have inhabited similar circles, I think, at times. But the Mox of Balhoun had been mentioned by Russell T Davies in his previews, and had been on the front cover of Doctor Who magazine. So he was somebody we sort of felt we had an angle on, even though we didn't know anything about him. We certainly didn't know he was a benign character. I love the way the Doctor flirts in the tree. And again, if you'd said to me that that's what he was going to do, I would have been appalled. I would have thought it was not Doctorish. But Eccleston, and look at the face of Bo. It's odd, because the nomenclature is unusual. The year's got the name Apple in it. Cal Sparkplug. They're names that aren't... aren't your sort of traditional sci-fi names and almost have an awkward relationship with sci-fi. Adherents of the repeated meme, that's very sort of Dawkins-esque, isn't it? But yes, and the face of Bo, a face in a jar. You sort of go, well, how does that live? Was there a body of Bo? But it doesn't at this stage. Of course, the face of Bo is just scenery. It's not even a character. The fact that it comes back is for later. But they basically wanted an array of odd aliens, didn't they? But the amount of effort into a background character, whereas of course this is, because when I heard that, when it was called The End of the World and Zoe Wanamaker was going to be in it, and I read that in Doctor Who magazine, and I think I'd read somewhere she was the last human, I'd imagined a sort of dystopian, desolate wasteland with collapsed buildings, post-nuclear, and Zoe Wanamaker in sort of black boots and windswept and fighting it out on the frontiers, not in this sort of rather camp oddball setup. So it's completely at odds with what I first imagined when the news started to leak about this episode. And look at that, you can see the veins. It's so much attention to detail. Yeah, he's alert, even though he's joining in the Doctor. He's alert. He's got his eye on, and he's obviously noticed something up with the ostrich egg. But then, and of course, Zoe Wanamaker is huge news, and and I think the debut of Tainted Love by Soft Cell in Doctor Who, which I think is a marvellous thing. I love Tainted Love by Soft Cell. It's one of my I'll dance to those tunes. Well, I don't know. I think my dancing days are over. But if so, yes, I interrupted myself. But this is brilliant. This is so well done. Where suddenly they don't take for granted that you're going to go into the far-flung future and assimilate. She's suddenly, and I love the way it's shot. The director does a great job, Eros Lynn, who's a couple of years above me at university. Why didn't I become his friend? I didn't actually know he was until many years later. In fact, I might have missed him by a year, but no, I don't think I did. But the way he shoots Rose's discombobulation and sudden, the fact that it suddenly knocks the wind out of her sails and she has to get out, is really real. That's the sort of humanity that Russell T Davies injected into this series that really catapulted it into the modern era, and is brilliantly done. And I love this fact that Jabe, is obviously knows something about the Doctor that we don't, but that it's obviously something that's quite difficult news. But yes, setting it in the future, where the Earth is about to die, is a very, it's almost the opposite of Rose, because Rose is saying, how an individual human is really important, and Doctor Who does that beautifully. So it's, that anybody can find their capabilities if they come into the Doctor's orbit, or if they're tested by outrageous situations, and it's a paean to the great inventiveness and resilience and sometimes good humour of people. But this is going, yeah, but actually you're all specks, and the planet that you inhabit isn't even immune to entropy and destruction, and it totally puts us in our place, having celebrated us the week before. Very clever. And now I think this scene was done later, and I really like Becky Armory's performance as Ruffalo. But I think this. Oh, and she gives. Doesn't she give? She gives an explanation that Rose doesn't get at all, does she? Yeah, she doesn't. She's got no idea. I really like her manner, but I think this was added later because the episode was underrunning. Because of course I think there is dialogue later saying that there aren't any maintenance crew on board. But you forgive it because actually it's a really nice scene. She's a very nice short-lived character in it, and it gives Rose a moment's connection. And of course, it does the lovely Doctor Who thing of having somebody early on succumbing. Thanks for the permission. Oh, I like that. I find that really touching. Especially as Ruffalo is now about to get... I don't quite know how you get killed by those little crawly spidery things and sucked into the vent, but she's gonna. Which I think is rather... I might choose Ruffalo as one of my things. I think it's going to be... I've got to think about what Joe will choose because Joe is a writer. So, and I have to remind myself that I always choose actors and characters because that's my world. Oh, it was underrunning quite a lot, wasn't it? If this was added later. Disclaimer: it might not have been, but I think it was. Oh, but that's a great Doctor Who thing. It's actually quite funny, even though it's really sad that somebody you like has died. The sort of being the feet flapping as they go into the into the vent, a bit like the old ladies in Paradise Tower when they get sucked into the food disposal unit. That's a great gag. the move your blue box. It's bold though, isn't it? And it's interesting. Has it? I don't think it's dated particularly. I mean, I was shocked when I watched some Buffy quite recently. Buffy that seemed so modern now looks quite dated. We watched The Sopranos the other night. The Sopranos, which is a show that everybody holds up as a huge bastion, and you think, and it's quite hard and it's grown up and all that sort of thing. That had dated in terms of production and the way it was shot and what people look like. That had dated. I mean, I think this has the picture quality is odd. It's got a slightly sort of weirdly murky palette about it, and is not great quality, which is interesting. I wonder if one day people will have a nice day. Will do their work on it and clean it up a bit because it is a bit sort of muddy. I love the that whatever it is they do with the camera with the I must do it in post with the things crawling in the ventilation shaft and sort of hitting the camera, and that's really clever. It's very nicely directed, this. Yes, they are so alien, Rose. But he's the way that the relationship between these two is fed into sort out the audience at home going, how can they speak alien then? Whack that out there. So that then you don't have a science fiction thing getting in the way of the storytelling, because actually solving those problems is there's no reason why it should take a long time. Although actually that's interesting. I'd forgotten this. He goes, it's something that my machine does, and she's going, what, have you put something in my head? So actually they did take a bit of time with the explanation, but it gave them an emotional response, which adds to the disconnection that she's feeling and the stress that she's feeling, and his inability to communicate with her effectively because he's got his own demons going on. I mean, so no, he's not just going, oh yeah, I need to explain why the aliens are understandable. He goes, I need to explain why the aliens are understandable, and I shall use that as the fulcrum of a dramatic scene that causes a schism between our two characters. Don't I? He's a very clever writer, and it's good because these two have a great, because you can tell they like each other, but also, you know, they're feeling their way around each other as well. He's a great doctor, isn't he, Eccleston? Not remotely the sort of actor I was expecting them to cast as Doctor Who, which is why it was brilliant casting. And she was not remotely the sort of actress I was hoping for, and because I didn't know, and she's great. Yeah, how do I feel about what has the Doctor done there that enables Rose to phone her mother on the day that she should be on Earth? I suppose you don't have to ask too much, but I remember seeing Jackie on the cast list and thinking, well, are they going to go back to Earth at the end of the episode? It didn't occur to me that halfway through she'd phone her mum up. But actually, that sort of base they've got in the modern day just keeps the show just grounded and solid. And Mickey and Jackie coming back, and actually that's been one of the big things with modern Who, as I call it, is those sort of regular supporting wave. I love the Doctor's. That's not supposed to happen with a slight. Something might be going wrong. I'm quite looking forward to that. He's very good. He's very good, Simon Day. And blue. It's blue again. The colour for aliens isn't green. You see, it's blue. I've just done Battlefield actually recently, and the destroyer's blue. So it's blue superseding green as the alien colour. And of course, so yeah, this is because the story. There's been no sort of high drama. Oh well, no, Ruffalo's been killed, of course. So yeah, but we don't actually know what the story is at this point. Yes, he has to. He's slightly hamstrung by the necessary blocking of this. Is that he sort of stays in his chair to get vaporized, which didn't particularly bother me at the time, but I watch it now with half an eye of, casual punters walking through and go, well, why didn't he get out of his chair? Why didn't he move? And we never quite buy, do we, people who are frozen with fear. Have you ever been frozen with fear? I know that's a thing people do on telly. I think we do. I think we do stay still when we're scared. It's a sort of animal instinct, isn't it, to not make yourself. I'm fine with it. I'm worried about that imaginary passing critic. She's great, and I love the costume and the look of the trees. Oh, and I'm sure I remember somebody online getting furious because somebody suggested there was a prostitute in Doctor Who, or that Rose was a prostitute. Michael Jackson, gosh, that's dated, of course. He was alive and well. The flirty Doctor. That's quite a new thing. I mean, Tom Baker would flirt with elderly ladies, but Eccleston's he's got the wood for the tree. So yeah, just the steward and the staff. Yeah, so that means Ruffalo, because Ruffalo wasn't in it at this point, but that's okay. Nice to see still wires in the future, because I'm not a great fan of this wireless world. But they'd be a devil to sort out, wouldn't they? Oh, he was on the Titanic. Yeah. No. So what will Joe be choosing, I wonder? The effects of the little spider things are great, by the way. And the sun burning effect is nice. I mean, this is there wasn't this sort of stuff being done by British television. And remember the Doctor Who Confidential, and I think maybe did Russell write there was some stuff in Doctor Who magazine about just how hard it was to do these effect shots for episode 2, with a television industry that was used to making medical dramas and detective shows. It did totally change the landscape, and it was a landscape we were happy to chart as viewers. Goodness me, it makes me so happy to remember this time, and so happy of the fact that all those doubts proved to be without foundation. I didn't doubt Doctor Who. I didn't doubt that Russell T Davies would produce something good. I doubted my luck, because it was all about me. Of course it is. I doubted that the world would like the thing I like, because I'm used to being the underdog, or everybody liking football and me not, and blah 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 blah. So a thrill what this initiated, and lipstick and skin. She calls her a bitchy trampoline as well, which is a cracking line. Bitchy trampoline. And it's very modern. Rose sounds to me, or did at the time, sounded to me like sort of modern Britain. She's a very important voice in Doctor Who. In fact, is as important as the Doctor. The series wouldn't be the same without either of them. And it's interesting because I think Yasmin Bannerman had been in Hollyoaks, hadn't she? So it was interesting watching actors whose career, I think actors in the 60s and 70s sort of would be used to playing somebody from the past a lot, and somebody from the future, or an alien. But I think we'd lost that art. We'd lost that wasn't anything that sort of figured in anybody's either ambitions or possibilities. And suddenly that whole new thing opened up, and it's so much more exciting as an actor to get a good costume or a funky makeup or something that means we have to do something else. I get catching myself. This is brilliant. I find this so moving. And especially because we've never seen the Doctor cry, and then we get a solo tear. We don't know what it is yet. Something awful's happened. Look at that, a tear falling from his eye. It's so good. I find that really affecting. The Doctor's tear, and we still don't know what it is, because he has to tell Rose at the end. Now this I have to say, this is Galaxy Quest. And the episode really starts to kick up now. So we know the adherents of the repeated meme are somehow dodgy. And so when are they going to be the main baddies? Yeah, there's certainly something dodgy about them. They are a bit like the Yeti. I'm sure Russell said at the time, or is it in the commentary for this, where he said, people say it'll be like that bit from Galaxy Quest. That's marvelous. But the thing in Galaxy Quest is it's supposed to be a Mickey take of this sort of thing, but it's the chutzpah, because it's so huge and the switch is at the end behind the fans, which makes no sense at all. Why would you put a switch behind two fans that you can't get to unless the fans are switched off? But, oh, if only you could switch off the fans, eh? Particularly this one. But, they know that. The people making this aren't stupid. They know that. They just go, doesn't matter. It's glorious. Let's do it. You go, okay, the commitment. I'm definitely going to choose, because this made me feel as if my thing was part of the modern world. I didn't really know Britney Spears, but I knew this song. I'd heard it on the radio. And the spaceship with this song that I associated with Radio 1, which is what my partner listened to rather than me particularly, it was suddenly like, my thing is part of the modern world. And that's Britney Spears in Doctor Who. It's suddenly a synthesis of everything that's all exciting. I love the use of Toxic. And I think one of the newspapers, I think the Guardian Guide maybe said, the world is destroyed to the tunes of Toxic Natch or something. Said something like that. And that made me feel like this was stamping itself on the popular culture of the year 2005, of which it, of course, became a vital part. And that's because you got a switched on show creator, controller, chieftain, who pitched it absolutely bang on. And I actually would like a little bit more of Toxic. I always get a bit disappointed when it stops. And I do quite like the fact they have a sort of argument. And I quite like that font. Yes, Sunfilter Rising. But not for long. But that's all good, and I like the fact that it leaves burn marks. You can do a lot of stuff in post-production now that you could... Because, of course, I would compare this to old Doctor Who. So anything that they could do that you couldn't do in old Doctor Who is like, oh, wow, they can do that now. You can leave burn marks, and you can get rid of CSO fringing, and, oh, it's all so exciting. And it's weird, though, because it hasn't diminished my love for old Doctor Who, but for a while when this was back, I wasn't watching the old stuff because this was all brand new. I would watch it on the Saturday. I would watch it again on the Saturday night. Then I would watch it first thing Sunday morning. Then I would probably watch it again on the Wednesday. Then I would watch again on the Friday, but with an eye to the next time trailer as a it was more of a lead-in to the next. And then so I would watch it 1, 2, 3, 4, at least 5 times in 1 week. Talk to the face. Do you think he did the face of Bo just for that joke? I wouldn't put it past him. Whereas, of course, we know the face of Bo now is part of Doctor Who mythology much more. You can tell it's Zoe Wanamaker. It's very good. They adhere, yes, because you're expecting. I think you know that Cassandra's the baddie, really, but that's part of the fun. And I didn't know what a meme was, but it was because it was the sort of word du jour, so I had to sort of look it up. Doctor Who continuing its educational, but that's a good line. That's it. Yeah. Oh yes, tax-free money. But it's a great. Also, although it's fun and it's grotesque, it is a great comment about how far do you go with cosmetic surgery. And my goodness, that is even more relevant now than then, as you see what people are doing to themselves. But actually it's not about flatness now. It's more about these sort of funny pouty lips and all of that the Instagram generation seem to do. But it's all cut from the same cloth. And this idea that, you flatten yourself and you do so much, and then you have to correct the surgery that's gone wrong, and then if that correction doesn't quite work, the more you do, and you end up with a bitchy trampoline. You end up with somebody flat and in need of moisturization. It's a clever comment about vanity and technology, and it's a plausible extension of our 21st century preoccupations, which is what good science fiction does. Heck, yeah. And she's going to escape. I mean, I don't quite know how she would, because her brain's in the jar, isn't it? Yeah. But she's a great character. Yeah, very good. I like the jukebox too. The Mocks of Balhoun. So, yes, the system restores switch. He's very busy, isn't he? He's got that energy. I think I liked him then. I think I like him more now than I did then, interestingly, because I think he was such a culture shock for me. I liked him. I still liked him. But I think some of when he says leg it and things like that, didn't sit with my idea of what the Doctor does, because Doctor Who can be anything. So you when it's what you don't quite expect, you're not used to, you're uncertain about it. So it's good. I'm happy to be proved wrong or to have my horizon stretched. It's a great effect, that as well. It's a great set, and those big fans are really, they look really real. Yes. Oh, I like a brave self-sacrifice. Oh, yeah. Oh dear. I still get tears in my eyes when supporting characters from Doctor Who do something brave. And that's a great moment. Although, in that moment of sort of forced levity, that there's an acknowledgement there that what she's doing ain't gonna be too good for her. Yeah, this is great. It's great. It's a brilliant. It reminds me a bit of the Poseidon Adventure, a favourite Sunday afternoon film. Sort of disaster. Everyone loves a bit of disaster movie stuff. So actually, it's interesting how passive Rose is for a lot of this. I mean, considering she's such an active character and an important part of Doctor Who, she spends a lot of this stuck in a room. And I like Murray Gold's music too. Really keeps it rattling along. And of course, the great shock: the Mox of Balhoun dies. I remember just thinking, hang on, how can they kill the Mox of Balhoun? And then remembering I hadn't even heard of him until about a month ago. Oh, Jabe. And that's a really sort of effectively moving shot. The fact that it's just the sort of little bit of flame dancing in the background, it doesn't even dwell on it. But she's gone. Now, this bit, I wonder if Joe will choose this bit, because it's an awful blooming cheek, I have to say. I love this iteration of Doctor Who, and I love Russell T Davies, but I think this is really cheating, because it's basically going, because he can't do this. He can't do this. And yet it's sort of philosophically and spiritually acceptable because of all it's trying to say about the Doctor feeling time around him and all that stuff. But it's not dramatically acceptable. It's a whacking great cheat. And yet I forgive it. I'm not going to choose it as one of my favourite moments, even though it's actually very well done, because I think it's a liberty. But the shot of Earth blowing up's great, and I could understand those who are disinclined to what I still laughingly call New Who, even though it's 14 years old. I know people younger than this programme, who would see that as an example of cheating and of naughty science fiction, because there's no plausible explanation for it apart from some wispy stuff about feeling, time or whatever, which is naughty. But I find myself not minding it at all. I minded it a bit then. I don't care now. And I love his bristling. And I love the fact he goes to, yes, I moved again. I'm quite an emotional chap, aren't I? I love the fact he goes to, comfort the non-speaking trees, who are actually Alan Rusko and Paul Casey, who were the sort of monster, the John Scott Martin and Gerald Taylor of 2005. In fact, Paul Casey cropped up in the latest series of Doctor Who, in the Nikola Tesla episode. But they were all the monsters this series, and you knew you had to get her back. But this I did mind. Interesting. Death is a very important part of Doctor Who. I remember Clive getting killed off screen in Rose was a concern of mine, because I was like, oh God, are we so namby-pamby now as audiences that we can't see people die? It was important for me to watch someone die. Isn't that awful? But because that death is an important part of Doctor Who. But the fact that the Doctor doesn't attempt to save Cassandra here, and we discover as we go on that the Doctor is war-scarred and needs to learn and all that sort of thing. But to me, it's a fundamental thing of the Doctor is that life is important to him, and that he certainly doesn't take life. Now, he's not taking her life, but but for me, they hadn't established the Doctor as being this non-life-taking force for good. So the fact that this is the war-scarred version, I wasn't quite ready for, and it's interesting because we know what we know now, and we know what this was sort of setting up and establishing because of what the Doctor tells Rose at the end. And actually, Eccleston gives it a bit of a comedy look, which is a good mixing of the two styles of the Doctor's function as person who does funny things and person who's the dramatic core. But I wasn't happy with the Doctor not being that bothered about Cassandra. But of course she comes back, so we know in the long term that she's not actually dead, which means that but we do have to wait a year to discover that. I wanted my hero to be a bit less blunt in the face of death, that he might have been able to do something about, or even if he couldn't, he could have at least fretted that he should have done. But of course it's setting up the fact that this big confession he's about to tell Rose, which is a big driver for their relationship and for what this character in this, he's not the War Doctor, but he's the war-scarred Doctor. So again, it's funny that it doesn't bother me now in the way that it did then. And I love the fact they talk about chips in this bit, because that's it's that thing. You've just been to the future and all these crazy things, and this Doctor is as happy with chips as he is with walking, talking trees. But of course, it's not just that story shows us that this Earth that we're on isn't going to be here forever, and that we're small specks of dust. It is mirroring what's happened to the Doctor. Fuck. Oh, I don't normally swear on these, but because you go, no, this is just an NC. The story's over. Why are we having this stuff on the street? Oh, they've destroyed Gallifrey. He is the last of the Time Lords, and one of the Doctor Who movies, I think, was going to be called that. And the idea that you destroyed Gallifrey was absolute blasphemy. But of course, you do it here, and you go, of course, that makes absolute sense. I suddenly care about Gallifrey again because you've destroyed Gallifrey. If it was just that 3 years in, they went, I'm going to go to my home planet now, it's got people with robes and high collars, you'd go, really? But take that away. One, it gives him such a driver. It gives him an important bond with her. It gives him the melancholy. And for people who've never seen Doctor Who before, well, he becomes then the sort of lonely, melancholy hero. For people that have seen the series before, it takes him back to the original conception of the Doctor, which is the lone traveller, not somebody who was part of a civilization, because we found out about Gallifrey, not for 6 years or so. So in a way, it's sort of rebooting, but actually rebooting it so that it's back to the original conception of the show. Very clever. Really enjoyed that. I'm going to gush about every story. I have to. That's what this is about. But and this excited me, of course, because for me, her story is set in the past. What Doctor Who is all about. And of course, yes, Simon Callow as Charles Dickens. But and of course, the Next Time trailer was as much of the excitement as the episode itself, because it gave you a glimpse of what was coming next week, and because this was also brand new. And look at the speed of these credits. We're going to watch the credit. No! Right. Well, we're just going to have to pretend I didn't press the button. I'd actually watched on Netflix to mean that we got the whole credits. I really hate it when credits get swallowed up. So you've still got them going. I hope you're lucky. But I was commenting on the speed of the credits because they actually go at a speed where you can read them. I like the fact that he's credited as Doctor Who as well. Actually, while you've got the credits going, I've got to choose my favourite things. Well, I think Toxic. That's my aesthetic thing. I think the destruction of Gallifrey. I think, and the Doctor's tear associated with that whole element of that running through the episode, but also the ramifications that it has for the rest of the series and for the character and everything. Masterstroke. And if you'd said to me when the series was coming back, oh, by the way, they're going to destroy Gallifrey, I'd be like, you're kidding. And then, of course, as immediately as it happens, you go, that makes absolute sense. Can I say the destruction of Earth as well? Because I do think that's important, because I think Doctor Who concurrently reminds us that the individual is really important and celebrates the individual, no matter how supposedly humble that their background is or their job is. If they're, often people who don't get heroic light shined upon them get to do heroic things, and it shows that there's no small person or no unimportant life. But at the same time, I like the fact that it also goes, because I think you can go too far with that. I think it also goes, but humans don't get too big for your boots. You're not all that special, because in the whole scheme of things, you're just an event. And I like those two things working together. So the destruction of Earth, but I hope I've explained that slightly beyond the mere act of its destruction, but all of those different drivers that it has going in different directions. What else did I like in that episode? Bitchy Trampoline is a great line. So I have to say Cassandra. I mean, the effect, and Zoe Wanamaker, and that exchange with Rose, I like very much indeed. And the final thing, I would say, that I like about the end of the world will be, I'm going to say Ruffalo, the last minute edition, but there's plenty of other things I could have chosen, but I think those will be my 5. Let us see what Joe Lidster has chosen.
So, my best thing about episode 1 is the pre-title sequence. Well, it's my first best thing. Is the pre-title sequence. It's got the joy of the Doctor being all excited after being quite grim in episode 1. So you're seeing Rose's impact on him, and the bit about going into the future and further into the future and further into the future. Again, that's very just exciting and very Russell T Davies, because I think, you know, during the wilderness years of Doctor Who, everything's in the year 3000 or whatever, and suddenly to go, no, we're going out there, going up there. And my favourite thing about it is the end, where he says, "I've brought you to the end of the world," and Billie Piper's brilliant sort of what the F expression on her face. So my second best thing about the episode is the scene with the plumber, which I think was a late minute addition. I think, as well as being brilliant, funny and sweet, and then obviously horrible and scary, it really does do that thing a bit I was saying earlier on, of saying to the family that you're watching science fiction, but that doesn't mean that all the aliens are going to be posh blokes talking about peace treaties. It's pure Russell T Davies. You'll love this character, even if they're only in one scene, and even if they're blue. I just think it's brilliant.
That was a great choice. It was the same as my choice, but he put it much better because, yeah, it is a lovely performance, but actually everything that Ruffalo is and stands for. I also want to do an honourable mention for the scene where Rose suddenly gets a bit terrified and feels lost and has to run away, and therefore encounter Ruffalo. So that nearly got chosen, but there we go. Yeah, good reasons. I like his reasons with Ruffalo.
My third best thing about the episode is the cut to inside a washing machine, and there's Jackie. It really shows that there's going to be an emotional truth to the new series that was often lacking in the original series. Much as I, do love the original series, the fact is you would experience culture shock. You would miss your mum. You would get freaked out by things. And I remember when I first watched it, I was just so surprised because I hadn't expected that, because that's not what Doctor Who does. In Doctor Who, you go off and have that adventure, and that's it. That story's gone. It's the new story. You're off having an adventure. And it's brilliant because I can't ever have imagined ever thinking Doctor Who should have had a scene like that. But I can't imagine this episode or the series in general not having that scene. I think it's so important. My fourth best thing about the episode is the use of Tainted Love and Toxic. Again, it's just very funny and silly and exciting. And I think they're both, again, it just emphasizes that this is new modern television. Because again, it's just not something you'd have ever have had. I don't think you ever did have really in the old series. And it's just really saying to the audience, this is modern TV. And it's the kind of thing that will make your mum laugh. And if your mum's laughing, she's enjoying the show and she's going to watch the next episode. And it made me laugh. So yeah, they're both brilliant songs as well. And my bonus best thing about End of the World is the scene where Rose is trapped with the sun filter rising, sun filter descending, partly because it's just very funny. It's quite silly, but it's also really scary. But I think it's because the episode has done such an amazing job of, saying to a general family audience, you're going to love this show, even if it's got aliens in. So it's really focused on doing all that. Again, a bit like Rose, it's quite plot-like, because it's a lot of it's about saying to the audience, you can watch this show. It's not weird science fiction. It's entertainment for the whole family. And it's also done such a brilliant thing of being about being modern Doctor Who. So we've seen the Companions Home, we've got modern music and so on like that, that I think for some reason I wasn't expecting there to be such a scene so blatantly about the companion being in peril. They'd almost started to seem a bit invincible, the Doctor and Rose, and because they're taking us on this journey and their job is to make this accessible to the family and everything. So I just think it was really scary. Scary because I was an adult. I wasn't that scared, but I was very excited when it happened, and I still think it's a brilliantly exciting, fun scene. And yeah, that's it. So those are my 5 things. I look forward to you choosing other things. You've asked me to say I'm Joe Lidster, and something about me is that after 25 years, I am currently on my 8th day without a cigarette. So I'm now going to get a drink because I'm very tense. And you can find me on Twitter at Joe Lidster, all one word. I mean, all Twitter accounts are all one word, I think, aren't they? But yeah, it's at Joe Lidster. Anyway, this has been fun, Toby. I look forward to seeing your video. Bye-bye.
Oh, I've met some lovely, interesting people because of Doctor Who. Joe is a fabulous writer. You probably, if you're watching this, you probably don't need me to tell you that, because I'm sure you'll have watched and listened to all of his stuff that he's done before availing yourself of this. But if you haven't checked out Joe's stuff, do definitely check him out on Twitter. He's great. And I'm thrilled he's done that. I thought he chose some really interesting and insightful things. I thought he would choose either Cassandra or one of the two destructions, so I was quite confident that I'd get more than half of his, but I didn't. I only got two, Ruffalo and Toxic. So I think he wins. So I think he's allowed my slippers. That's the rules today. So Joe, you've won my slippers. Come and get them. You have to take them from my cold, snug feet. All right. And I think because I was talking through it, well, of course I was, talked through the whole thing. I missed the bits where she says, "Where do you want me to go? Ipswich," which is a great line. Well, that was very good. But there'll be more of these, because despite what the title said, it's not the end of the world. Bye.
Can I say something before you stop recording?
Yeah.
I love you very much, but I'm very glad that I didn't live with you when you watched Doctor Who 5 times a week, the same episode.
Yeah.
I love you very much, but you'd have had to go in the front room to do that. But
Yeah.
well, not always. That just sounds mean. I'll shut up.
Thank you so much for listening to Happy Times and Places, which was presented by me, Toby Hadoke, and my special guest was Joe Lidster, who can be found on Twitter at Joe Lidster. Thanks to my patrons, the featured ones this episode are Russell Parker, Nick Mellish, Pip Maidley, Sean McAllister, Nate Lynch, Guy Lambert, Hendrik Korzeniowski, Andy Kitching, Jeff Kaplan, Judith Jackson, Christopher Joyce, Gregory Hudson, Darren Howard, Matthew Houliston, Sam Hollingsworth, and Simon Hodges. The music for this podcast is specially composed by Dave Gates. The podcast artwork is by Dylan Patterson, and the YouTube thumbnails by Gav Rymel. Thanks to them all. Next time, I'm going to try not to make a tom tit of myself, because I shall be eulogising, oh yes, the Time Monster. If you'd like to consider supporting these podcasts, you can do so at patreon.com/Toby Hadoke, where you will be treated to exclusive and advance releases, and also some other tat. Or you can just do a one-off payment on kofi.com/Toby Hadoke. You can also subscribe to my YouTube channel or go to my website, which is www.tobyhadoke.com. But mostly, thanks for listening. Thanks for downloading. Please review and rate these, only if you're going to do it positively, in all of the usual places, because that stuff really does help. Anyway, thanks very much. I hope the rest of your day is good. And remember, no matter what happens, it's not the end of the world.
I hate doing things like this. Why do you make us do things like this?